I was a nerd growing up, like hardcore nerd, where I went to the School of Science and Mathematics, which is a boarding school in Durham, North Carolina. And I was obsessed with quantum physics as an idea until I realized that I couldn't do the math. And then I said, well, I better go into music instead. So that's what I did. And I'm grateful for that. But I was really obsessed with something called the Heisenberg Uncertainty Principle. And what this is, just kind of really basically, is that the very act of observing disturbs the observed, right? You cannot tell if a particle is, you can't tell the place and the velocity of a certain particle at the same time. Because in order to measure one, you're going to knock off the other. So a photon will go knock that particle off course, and you don't know how fast it was going, or you know what I mean? So there's this aspect of this that is within every culture in the world, and particularly our American culture, in that you can't affect without being affected. It's a two-way street constantly. Now, who has the power, right? And who doesn't, that changes sometimes. Sometimes there's a through line, you know, like as in American history, but in terms of the effect, there's always going to be an effect. What you see changes you. Knowing that you're being observed changes you. So this is the idea of what's going on with these religious practices that then kind of turn into what becomes dances. People know these dances, like there's one called the Kalinda, which is a really, really popular thing that is like pan-Caribbean, like it's happening with different groups, but it sort of becomes part of the culture that is coming together. And what was most dangerous about this, and the banjo was always at the center of this, and what was dangerous about this was that people started to notice that when you had black people doing this, the white people around started going, hey, what's that? That's, ooh, something's speaking to me there. And they would start to gather around, and people said, oh, no, 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 no. So these black festivities could be tolerated, but when whites got involved, everyone needed to be careful, in the words of Kristina Gaddy. And yet, as bad as dancing, music, and drunkenness might be, the white residents of Albany couldn't seem to stay away. So this is not just in the Caribbean. This has migrated to other places in America, this idea of these dances and these ceremonies that start out of a religious practice but then kind of move, you know, into an intercultural mixing. You have Pinkster, you have John Canoe, and all these different places. And I mention Albany because, right, a lot of this is happening in New York State, a lot of this mixing. So whenever you start seeing, whenever the powers that be start to see blacks and whites coming together, they go, oh, no, 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 and so they outlaw the Kalinda, and they outlaw Pinkster, and they outlaw the banjo in some places, you know? So they start to see, so this is, I want to mention this because there's a lot of, you know, why don't we know this history? Because it's dangerous, right? Because the more separate we are, the less we can compare notes. Because blackness is not a monolith, right? It's not a monolithic experience, neither is whiteness. It's all made up, all of it. Not the experiences, but how we talk about it is all based on fallacious, you know, factoids that are used to manipulate people.